Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Astrology News Report, an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic astrology. Presented by yours truly, Ron Berger. Today is January 28th, 2018. In this segment, we'll take a look at the week that was and see how the planets' patterns in the zodiac matched up with the past week's events. Going back a bit, at the beginning of last week, way back on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, there was a 3-day federal government shutdown. It was all drama and political theater as the nation watched the Congress, or rather the Senate, trying to sort out another one of its budget showdown pseudo-crisis. The build-up to all the drama was happening while Mercury was still with Saturn in Sagittarius. That's the planet of communication plus the planet of endurance and stubbornness in the sign of personal ideology, a toxic mix guaranteed to short-circuit attempts at compromise. Meanwhile, Venus, the planet of compromise and agreement, was in Capricorn, the sign of practical realization. So, that part sounded good. Except that Venus was together with Ketu, one of the eclipse points, a significator of past karma. Thus, past karma, in other words, the Republicans' refusal to deal with the whole DACA situation, got in the way of making a practical agreement. Ketu is a spiritual significator in Vedic astrology. Spiritual in this sense implies sacrifice. The Venus-Ketu combination resulted in a sacrifice for a compromise agreement. The Democrats got the Childhood Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, renewed for 6 years, letting one hostage out of the grips of the Republicans, but the GOP still holds DACA hostage until the next budget fracas comes up next week. The DACA and Dreamer situation brings up another astrological factor. Right now, Mars is transiting through Scorpio, the 12th house of the USA astrology chart, the part of a country's chart that signifies foreigners, conspiracies, treason, criminals, prisons, and so forth. But the 12th house is also the house of displaced persons. That would be people without a home, the homeless. This can also be applied to those who are without citizenship, in other words, in the country without legal status, thus the Dreamer DACA crowd. Mars is the planet of action, so action for the people without citizenship. Mars will be in Scorpio until March 7th. The Democrat senators have extracted a promise from Senate leader Mitch McConnell to bring the immigration mess to the Senate floor before the next budget go-around scheduled for February 8th. And, of course, hearing of a make-a-deal opportunity, President Donald Trump has weighed in with his demands, as in, I gotta have my wall. The world's movers and shakers gathered in the alpine resort town of Davos, Switzerland last week for the World Economic Forum, the yearly summit where they plot out the economic future for the rest of us mere mortals. Nature greeted them with the heaviest snowstorm seen in this area in the last couple of decades. Up in the heavens, Mars, planet of comrades, has been transiting in Scorpio, sign of secrets and alliances. A lot of what went down in Davos was scripted for public consumption, media theater, but the really important stuff was, as usual, happening behind the scenes, where the economic nobility met off camera. Not to be left out, the Trump administration invited itself to the confab, and not surprisingly, stole the show in many respects. The president's tone was upbeat during his speech. As expected, he boasted of his accomplishments. He sought to drive a hard bargain for global businesses to increase their investment in the United States, and he warned against unfair trade practices. Trump gave his big speech at the end of the conference, Friday afternoon, January 26th. Here's the chart, computed for the time of the beginning of the speech in Davos. Gemini, The sign of diplomacy was rising, which is a good thing. But Mars, planet of combat, is strong too, and in the 6th house, indicating a willingness to fight for victory. The president stuck to the script at first, but then in an after-speech Q&A, he gave in to his impulses and gave the crowd of ultra-wealthy global elites a dose of unscripted Trump, which drew boos and hisses from the otherwise well-mannered assembly. In Mr. Trump's chart we can see the source of the problem. Mars, planet of combat, is moving into position where it influences his natal moon, the planet of emotions. No doubt there will be more intense angry outbursts and building in intensity coming in the next few weeks. Here's another manifestation of Mars transiting in Scorpio in the 12th house of the USA chart, which gives results more along the lines of what we would expect from the cloak and dagger sector of a nation's astrology chart. A subset of the Republican members of the House Intelligence Committee has been meeting secretly to build a case against senior personnel at the Justice Department and FBI, claiming the officials improperly mishandled the contents of a dossier containing alleged ties between President Donald Trump and Russia. The purpose of all this? To discredit Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, or even get him fired. Led by Intelligence Committee head Devin Nunes, the Republican group generated lots of drama by threatening to release the product of their investigation, a 4-page memo that they themselves created, to the entire House of Representatives. Simultaneously, they have refused to release the memo to the FBI. Especially notable here is the signification of Mars, planet of action and strategy, and brothers, or comrades, in Scorpio, sign of secrets and investigations. Of course, meanwhile, the real investigation, led by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, is making more headway as more West Wing people, past and present, find their way to Mr. Mueller and his team to offer their testimony. Astrologically, the problem for Mr. Trump comes when Mars nears the end of Scorpio, whereupon it will be opposite and therefore pose a major challenge to his natal Uranus-Rahu-Sun conjunction in his 10th house of status and reputation. Stay tuned for what looks like major fireworks coming up. And now, before ending, I have a small favor to ask. It does take a lot of time, effort, and work to produce these videos, and I do live in the real world with bills to pay. If you appreciate what this YouTube channel does for you, please help keep it and me going by visiting the donation page and making a contribution. Just click on or touch the donation card you see here. Thanks, and until next week.